Welcome to the Bible Savvy Podcast, a weekly conversation about how to understand, enjoy, and apply God's Word. It's time to jump into a new passage from the Bible Savvy reading plan.
All right, Bible Savvy Nation, I'm here with Pastor Courtney and Pastor David. I haven't said that one in a while. I feel like we talked about what should we call you guys, and then we got all the feedback and we didn't call them anything.
But they are the Bible Savvy Nation.
The Bible Savvy Nations, or the Savvies, or whatever you.
It's Bible Savvy
Bible Savvy Nation.
It just is. If I were making T-shirts, they would say Bible Savvy Nation.
All right. Well, Ferris isn't in the room anymore, and so we don't get to just make T-shirts. So
right.
He always was like, "Let's make a T-shirt." I don't know if he ever did. All right, David, what's the question?
Well, a little peek behind the curtain, people. I shared the question with Clayton and Courtney right before we hit record, and Clayton said he hates this question, which is perfect from my perspective. Would you rather live somewhere where it's always only snow or where it's always only hot? And part of this question came from the fact that I woke up today and it was snowing. You know, this is, you know,
we record ahead of time.
Hold on.
Right, yeah,
Wait, we broke the illusion. We broke the illusion.
We're just breaking the
I wore a
fourth wall
T-shirt to make it
lot
seem
in
like it was
this.
April.
But there was snow happening, and now it's sunny and warm, and it's just, you know, welcome to spring.
It's a classic Chicago spring.
It got me thinking, like, we've got multiple seasons, but what if it was only one? What if it was only ever snow or only ever hot? So I'm curious to hear what you guys would like.
All right, Courtney.
I already know mine. Hot. I lived in Arizona for a while, and I am so fine with that. So completely fine with that. I like to now. I like to travel to, and we lived in Arizona. I liked to travel to the snow and go see it.
Yeah.
And then drive back to the valley where it was nice and warm.
I don't know. It's probably hot because I feel like there's just more, like, it's freer. Like you can go outside easier when it's whatever. Because snow.
To the lake.
Yeah.
You can go to the ocean if you like beaches.
No,
but
I don't.
But Canyon Lakes,
summer.
beautiful.
Okay. But I also, like, there's something about, like, the coziness of winter or whatever. The thing that would keep me definitely from doing snow is if it was always dark. Like, there's a difference between saying it's cold and snowy versus, like, you get
some places in Alaska
cold but never
and,
Christmas.
Yeah. Oh, I get for Aslan's sake, I cannot pick. I cannot pick the winter, so I'll pick the summer. But I live in the Midwest because spring and fall exist here.
Yes.
And so if there was a place where it was always like golden hour in the fall, you know what I mean? Like, that's like, you know what I mean? Like, just the hoodie
How many
weather.
selfies can I take?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm probably like 51% snow on this question. Like it's close, but the main reason being when I get physically hot, I truly think my brain shuts off. Like there's an off switch that hits if I'm sweaty or if I feel hotter than I should be. I can't focus on conversations. I can't think about what I'm supposed to do. All I can think about is how do I get cooler? Like there are times here we have a walk-in fridge at the church, and there are times where we do prayer walks outside, and I get back in after walking with Clayton because he walks way too fast during prayer walks.
No, that's our group, Courtney and I,
and Courtney. Both of you. What am I talking about? It's both of you. Both
our
of you are
group
guilty
is a
of this.
running podcast.
But there are times like I'll get back during the summer months and I'll go and
standards.
I will go stand in the walk-in fridge because I can't go back and start working until my body temperature reaches a cool point. So I think
that's amazing.
I think
I'm never going to wonder, like, hey guys, where's David?
He's in the walk-in fridge.
He's in the walk-in.
So my last church had a walk-in freezer, which was even crazier. But
wow.
But so I think I would rather live in only snow instead of only hot.
All right. Oh man, no. Our group, our prayer walking group, is very intense. All right. So, hey guys, we're in the book of Numbers still. Welcome. We're going to be in Numbers chapter 14. Let me give you a little context because if you're only listening to the podcast, there has been a lot that's happened in the last 14 chapters or 12 chapters. Mm-hmm. Israel has set out from Mount Sinai. They have gotten everything together, everything's done, and God says, I'm going to lead you to the promised land, which is very, very exciting because of all the promises to Abraham that have yet to be fulfilled. This is the last one on the list. You say, okay, let's do this, right? Let's get to the promised land, and it's like come together. So they travel across the desert, and they've got some trouble along the way. They hit some hard things, and they grumble, and they get in some trouble, and so on. But they make it. Okay, they get to the edge of the land, and they say, "Okay, here's what we're going to do. Before we just run in, let's send some scouts out, get one person from each tribe. They'll go kind of look at the land and kind of figure out what we're headed for, because there are people that live there, and they kind of want to know." And so the scouts come back, and the scouts say, "Yeah, amazing land. God really set us up. This place is going to be awesome. But there's some people there, and they're scary, and we're going to have to fight them, and they seem huge. They're like giants, and it's bad." And so they're freaking out. 10 of them are freaking out. 2 of them are not, and it's Joshua and Caleb. And they're saying, "Well, it looks tough, but we could do it, right? God said he was with us." And the people decide, "No, this is too much," and they start to freak out. And this is where Numbers 14 begins. So, Courtney, we're going to have you read from verse 1 all the way to verse 38, which I know is a lot, but this is an important story. So we're gonna do it.
Yep. That night, all the members of the community raised their voices and wept aloud. All the Israelites grumbled against Moses and Aaron, and the whole assembly said to them, "If only we had died in Egypt or in this wilderness. Why is the Lord bringing us to this land only to let us fall by the sword? Our wives and children will be taken as plunder. Wouldn't it be better for us to go back to Egypt?" And they said to each other, "We should choose a leader and go back to Egypt." Then Moses and Aaron fell face down in front of the whole Israelite assembly gathered there. Joshua, son of Nun, and Caleb, son of Jephunneh, who were among those who had explored the land, tore their clothes and said to the entire Israelite assembly, "The land we passed through and explored is exceedingly good. If the Lord is pleased with us, he will lead us into that land, a land flowing with milk and honey, and will give it to us. Only do not rebel against the Lord, and do not be afraid of the people of the land, because we will devour them. Their protection is gone, but the Lord is with us. Do not be afraid of them." But the whole assembly talked about stoning them. Then the glory of the Lord appeared at the tent of meeting to all the Israelites. The Lord said to Moses, "How long will these people treat me with contempt? How long will they refuse to believe in me, in spite of all the signs I have performed among them? I will strike them down with a plague and destroy them, but I will make you into a nation greater and stronger than they." Moses said to the Lord, "Then the Egyptians will hear about it. By your power, you brought these people up from among them, and they will tell the inhabitants of this land about it. They have already heard that you, Lord, are with these people, and that you, Lord, have been seen face to face, that your cloud stays over them, and that you go before them in a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. If you put all these people to death, leaving none alive, the nations who have heard this report about you will say, 'The Lord was not able to bring these people into the land he promised them on oath, so he slaughtered them in the wilderness.' Now may the Lord's strength be displayed, just as you have declared. The Lord is slow to anger, abounding in love, and forgiving sin and rebellion. Yet he does not leave the guilty unpunished. He punishes the children for the sin of the parents to the 3rd and 4th generation. In accordance with your great love, forgive the sin of these people, just as you have pardoned them from the time they left Egypt until now." The Lord replied, "I have forgiven them, as you asked. Nevertheless, as surely as I live, and as surely as the glory of the Lord fills the whole earth, not one of those who saw my glory and the signs I performed in Egypt and in the wilderness, but who disobeyed me and tested me 10 times, not one of them will ever see the land I promised on oath to their ancestors. No one who has treated me with contempt will ever see it. But because my servant Caleb has a different spirit and follows me wholeheartedly, I will bring him into the land he went to, and his descendants will inherit it. Since the Amalekites and the Canaanites are living in the valleys, turn back tomorrow and set out toward the desert along the route to the Red Sea. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "How long will this wicked community grumble against me? I have heard the complaints of these grumbling Israelites. So tell them, as surely as I live, declares the Lord, I will do to you the very thing I heard you say. In this wilderness, your bodies will fall. Every one of you 20 years old or more who was counted in the census and who has grumbled against me. Not one of you will enter the land I swore with uplifted hand to make your home, except Caleb, son of Jephunneh, and Joshua, son of Nun. As for your children that you said would be taken as plunder, I will bring them in to enjoy the land you have rejected. But as for you, your bodies will fall in this wilderness. Your children will be shepherds here for 40 years, suffering for your unfaithfulness, until the last of your bodies lies in the wilderness. For 40 years, 1 year for each of the 40 days you explored the land, you will suffer for your sins and know what it is like to have me against you. I, the Lord, have spoken, and I will surely do these things to this whole wicked community which has banded together against me. They will meet their end in this wilderness. Here they will die." So the men Moses had sent to explore the land, who returned and made the whole community grumble against him by spreading a bad report about it, these men who were responsible for spreading the bad report about the land were struck down and died of a plague before the Lord. Of the men who went to explore the land, only Joshua and Caleb survived.
All right, let's talk about the O and comma observations. What do you guys see in this story?
What a story. There's so much in here.
Yeah.
There is so much. Can I ask like a precursor story a little bit? Like,
Yeah.
why were the people so huge? And like when they did go, and they're giants, we're grasshoppers. And then when they go and they see the land, like one of my favorite images in the book of Numbers, maybe in the entire Bible, is them carrying a branch of grapes on a pole. Like it's so big, they have to have 2 people carry it. Like those are big grapes. Yeah. These are big people. Why are they so big?
They went back in time to the land of the dinosaurs. Like it just feels like. Okay, so that might be a rabbit hole.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
This is the very simple version that will raise more questions. Like I'm gonna get a whole Clayton episode about this probably.
And you can answer me that
way. No,
this is.
If I say this, people will ask.
They reference the Nephilim, so it's gonna happen.
Yes.
So
which you have talked about.
Yeah. So there is this whole theme of oversized people. or just giants. Okay, let's just call them giants. Who inhabit this land, and they are somehow connected to the Nephilim, which are before, when Noah's flood comes, this is a problem because there are angels who have mated with women, and their children are these Nephilim that are, giant warrior type people. And part of what the flood was doing was taking care of them. But they seem to persist, and that raises a whole host of questions about like the flood and what happens there, because there's some people that survive somehow. So there's that question, and then there's but they're giants. And they seem to be related to angels, which is a whole different question. But when you boil it down, there are groups of people, especially in the land of Canaan, that God, all throughout the story of the Pentateuch, they're identified as very large. And it is pretty clear that the people that God wants to cleanse the land of are some of these people. Like part of what they're doing is taking aim at this. And the reason this is at all significant, besides the curiosity, is you know who kind of the last one is? Goliath. So when the people go into the land to take care of the people that are there, the symbolic end of that conquest is when David finally does what they never accomplished and takes them out. And so that is like a way of signaling, guys, we did it. We killed the giant. So That's the only reason I
Wow.
bother to explain that and not brush it off.
That's cool. Yeah.
So
I'm going to be
but
writing
I-
my own Hey Clayton
oh,
emails.
oh my gosh, there's a million things. I don't even know if I
So
know how to
good,
answer
but
them.
they were eating
Yeah.
giant grapes.
But the
too,
giant
which-
grapes is amazing.
Yeah.
It's so fun.
Or at least the cluster of grapes was giant. I like to think of them as big
I
old,
like
like
to-
it's like
and they're like carrying them on a little post. Like
it's in a lot of kids' Bibles. It is.
Yes.
Okay, let's talk
wild.
about this passage
Sorry.
though.
Just I had to go there.
Well, couldn't help but notice the verse 3, another request to go back to Egypt. Like
Yeah.
this, repeated across a lot of the Old Testament or the Pentateuch is, it was just so much better. Let's just go back. Let's just go back. This is constant kind of repeated phrase of let's just go back. But really my favorite part is, Joshua and Caleb's speech. Like it makes me want to stand up and like charge the hill, like I'm up, I'm going, like they're just, do not rebel against the Lord, don't be afraid, we will devour them, their protection's gone. Like I don't know, sometimes you just read it feels cinematic when you're
Yes.
reading it, that
Oh, yeah.
that it just makes me go like I'm following their lead, let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The detail in there that I like in their speech was they're like, we will devour them.
Yes.
And I accidentally printed off the wrong translation. Like I just have a different version in it that I did. But in this translation, it says they'll be bread for us, and I'm just like, yeah, just dip them in some olive oil.
Yeah.
It's like this is gross. But just but part of that is they're thinking this land's going to devour us, and they're saying no, it's the other way around.
Yeah.
And you got it backwards, guys.
Well, and I noted in verse 4 when they're saying, like, wouldn't it be better for us to go back to Egypt? We should choose a leader and go back to Egypt. They're trying to, I put in quotes, we should undo what God did.
Yeah.
Like, God chose a leader, let us out of Egypt. But you know what we should do? We should choose a leader and go back to Egypt.
Yeah.
It's literally undoing exactly what God did.
One of my observations might be related to that. Verse 11, and I think later on, I don't remember where it was, maybe, I don't know, verse 22, 23, somewhere in there. It talks about treating God with contempt or like despising him. It's like the idea of making something small. Like when you treat someone with contempt, it's not as simple as like, I just don't like them or they're my enemy or something like that. It's like, I look down on them. They're beneath me. There's a minimizing of someone when you have contempt or despise them. And there's something they're doing to God here that is basically saying, let's make you small. You're too small to fight this battle. You're too small to have a good plan to lead us. You're like all your things, like not good enough. We've got a better idea.
I love the way that Moses intercedes for the people. We've seen him do it again. Yeah, we see it like it was Exodus 32, right? Like when it comes to from the mountain, they're worshiping a golden calf, and God's ready to wipe them out, and Moses intercedes, and God relents, and then it's like I'm like, wait, I've seen this before. I've seen this exact moment, and again Moses steps in for the people, advocates for them, and the Lord replies, "I've forgiven them as you asked, Moses." There is a faith in Moses, a boldness, a courage that is so palpable in this passage to step in once again for this rebellious people.
Yeah. And not to state the obvious, but to state the obvious, it points to another guy who interceded for us. You know what I mean? Like it's a Jesus moment where it's like, that's exactly what we need. Who's gonna defend these people? Well, Moses stepped up and they didn't deserve it. Jesus stepped up and said, stick with them, God. You know, it's amazing.
Yeah. Well, and in that, I wrote down that he said, it's almost like he's saying, remember your promises and then remember your character. Remember what you've done and remember who you are. Now, God doesn't need that memory, obviously. Like, it's not like, hey, God, remember you did these things, you said these things. But Moses just has such a tenderness and intimacy with God, right? And their conversations and their relationship there's such a level of intimacy there. And he has a tenderness towards his people. He's like, these are the things, maybe he's reminding himself, more than even reminding God, like, these are the things that you said you would do. These are the things that you've done.
Yeah.
And this is who you are. You're slow to anger, abounding in love, just as you've declared these things, And I just think that's interesting that it's like this, remember promises and then remembering God's character. I also think it's interesting when he says like but then the Egyptians are going to hear about it.
Yeah.
Like if you give up on them now,
Yeah.
they're going to think you're weak, and it's like, I just think that's interesting. That's the angle he goes at there.
That one feels weird to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of get it. It takes me a few seconds to like figure out why this would work, but like it sort of just feels like, and you're gonna look bad, and you're like, well, like God really, like you need to. But there is something about saying, what if after all of this, the end result is people are less likely to worship you and less likely to realize you're the actual God that made them and deserves this, because they look at you and interpreted your justice as failure. Like you did the right thing, but all they saw was, well, I guess he wasn't strong enough. That is a deeper thing to be like, God, no, you got to make sure people know that you're really our God.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm a man of the people, and I'm gonna beat some people to their email accounts because I know they are typing out the words "Hey Clayton" right now.
Oh man, I don't know where we're going.
About verse 18. It says all these great things about he's slow in anger and everything, and then he says, yet he does not leave the guilty unpunished. He punishes the children for the sin of the parents to the third and fourth generation, which makes me think I am paying for my grandpa's sin, my great grandpa's sin, and this feels a little bit odd. And so let me beat the emailers to the question.
Sure.
And offer it up here.
Okay, so several thoughts. One is this is a quote of a longer section when did we talk about this one? Moses says, "Show me your glory," and God passes by. We did this one. And he says his name.
Yep.
The Lord, compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, etc. But there's more to the quote, right? Visiting the iniquity on the fathers of the fathers on the children to the third and fourth generation, but pardoning to the thousandth generation those who love me and keep my covenant, or however it goes. I should have it memorized. But he basically says, look, there is an asymmetry, like an unevenness to God's judgment and his mercy, right? So in the original context, it emphasizes God has judgment, but the mercy and the forgiveness is longer. Okay, so that's one thing to always keep in mind. Like Moses knows this, the people know this. That should be context that should be in your head when you hear a partial quote of that section. Also, it's worth noting, Moses is going to him asking for pardon. So whatever he's thinking, he's not thinking, well, you're super harsh, so maybe can we get an exception here? You know what I mean? So there's like some of that where like, obviously Moses is appealing to this because he thinks this whole quote puts God in a good light and a merciful light. So it helps say, my gut says this is awful, and maybe Moses doesn't think so maybe we shouldn't. But here's where I think what this means. And in some ways it's common sense when you step back. Who is impacted by your sin? Okay, we're all parents, right? So my hunch is that if you say, what is the hardest thing in my kid's life? It's probably me.
Yeah.
Right? Like I hope the best thing in my kid's life is their mom and dad, right? That we're like a blessing to them. But I know that in 30 years, when my kids are talking to their counselor about whatever they got to process, because we all do, right? They're talking about me, right? And we as adults have had to process our own parents, even if we love our parents and are thankful for them, their sin impacted us. And it's just the reality. The best thing you can give to your kids is your own holiness, right? Like to be a sort of person that would be a blessing. But the reality is we don't get that right. So our sin does impact them. So some of that's common sense, right?
Yeah.
There's also something to be said of third and fourth generation sounds like, man, you're just holding a grudge. It goes on and on and on. Well, that's because we live in single family homes and we move out of our parents' house. If I was in the ancient world, right now, I would live, my dad is alive, which means our nuclear family would live in some sort of collective group of tents, in this case, with my extended family, where my dad would still be with his grandkids. And, if he ever has great grandkids, that would be the case. So if you say, who does the sin of the head of household affect? The household. To the third and fourth generation. But it means that the generations after that, when those grandkids start to have their own kids, that's not continuing there. So there is like an appropriate, like this affects things. The other part of it is we are very individualistic people. Like our culture says, you are you and you are you, and our sin should not affect anybody else but me. And that's just not how most of the world has ever thought about it. They just assume that if there's sin in a family, sin in a community, the whole community is somehow implicated in it and affected by it. And I think that's probably a truer instinct, but our culture has told us, no, that can't possibly be fair. But most cultures say, no, we're a team.
Yeah.
And so if at work, let's think about this. So if at work, we're on the same team. So if something goes wrong that we do as a team, and maybe it's my fault, maybe it's your fault or whatever, but together as a team, we're going to look at it and be like, we're all affected by this thing that didn't go right or whatever. We have more of a sense of collectiveness when we're on it at work sometimes than with our families. So
it's good.
In verse 22, he points out that they disobeyed me and tested me 10 times. That's such a specific number. Like, don't we? The Lord replies, "I have forgiven them as you asked, but they tested me 10 times."
Yeah.
Like that was interesting to me that he put a number to that. Doesn't he say, forgive 70 times 7 and all of those things?
Yeah.
They tested me 10 times.
Yeah. I think it's probably at least partially symbolic. Like it's got a weightiness of like it's a complete number. Like it's not just once or twice. It was the whole like a 10. It's you know what I mean?
Both hands, 10 times.
Like rate their rebellion on a scale. They're a 10.
10 out of 10.
Right? Like it's a 10 out of 10. So I
good.
think it's probably something
good.
like that.
I love verse 24, but because my servant Caleb has a different spirit and follows me wholeheartedly, I circled that word wholeheartedly. Mm-hmm. I will bring him into the land he went to, and his descendants will inherit it. That just stuck out to me. Like here's this one guy who's kind of set apart. He didn't go with the crowd. He there's something different about his kind of tenacity that the Lord acknowledges, and there's a wholeheartedness to his following. So I just love that verse. Verse 27, to me, God sounds like a tired dad. Right? Like, how long are they going to grumble? It's like the end of a road trip with your kids. You're like, when will it end?
Yeah. Well, he says grumble 3 times. Like grumble.
Grumbling Israelites.
Yeah, it's just like all I hear is grumble.
Like, these
this is
grumbling Israelites.
Yeah. I think the irony here is it just catches my eye of like, look, you said if we go in there we're going to die. Well, guess what? By refusing to go in, you're going to die. Like the option, like I actually was giving you the other thing. Or you said our kids are going to be devoured here, and it's like actually they're the ones that are going to go in. Like there's your perspective is totally skewed about what's going to go on here, and because of that, you're actually going to get the thing you're afraid of.
Yeah,
that's that. I so many times that's what we do. We're like, well, I'm scared if I do what you say, God, that it's gonna be awful for me, and it's actually like, no, if you don't do what I say, it's gonna be awful for you. That's why I'm telling you to do this. Yeah,
that's good.
And in the context of the entire story, I mean, we cut it 38. Originally, we were going all the way to 45. But, even just that idea of like, they hear this, like Moses reports it to the Israelites. They mourn about it. And then they're like, okay, now we're ready. Like, how many times as a parent does that happen to you with your kids?
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
I punish you. And then all of a sudden it's, I give a consequence. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, I'll do it. And it's like, no, you're too late now. Like, that's not what we're doing now. We're done with that.
All right, let's go on to one of the M's in comma. Let's do meditation first. I'm going to read to you this verse that describes who God is here. Verse 18. The Lord is slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love, forgiving iniquity and transgression, but he will by no means clear the guilty. All right, let's talk about the other M in comma. Let's talk about message here. Sum it up in a principle.
My message was have a different spirit. Going back to verse 24, Caleb has a different spirit, and how contrasted that is against those grumbling Israelites to have a different spirit.
Nice. So I saw Caleb, Joshua, and Moses all show incredible faith, and that faith, I think, led to significant results. And so my message was faith breeds courage to both ask and obey God.
My message is looking at the kind of consequence of them not actually getting to go into the land. And so what I said is this: the reason people miss God's blessing is because they reject it. I say that because I think sometimes we assume the opposite. Well, the reason I miss God's blessing is because he's not giving it. And the truth is, the reason is because we say, whatever it takes to receive it, I'm not willing to do it. So I'm going to actually reject the blessing that you're offering. All right, let's go to the A and comma application. What do you do in light of this?
Well, my message was to have a different spirit, and I wrote a little statement as well of disobeying and testing God leads to death, but a different spirit and wholehearted obedience will lead to life for generations. And my application of that I kept thinking of is, how many times are you in situations with lots of grumbling people? And when there's someone with a different spirit, you notice and you want to follow them and you want what they have. And so walking into situations, trying to have that different spirit that people might see life in me, might see something different that would help lead them to life for generations. And just being cognizant of that when you're in those grumbling situations where it feels like people are kind of in those grumbly moods, to be the person who says, hey, I'm going to have a different spirit. And obviously we would say it's the Holy Spirit living in us, but I'm going to have a different spirit and I'm going to lead this in a different way. I'm going to try to turn the tide a little bit. So that was that, being identified as someone with a different spirit. I think that's something I would love to be identified as, someone with a different spirit who follows God wholeheartedly. So just be that person.
My message was faith breeds courage to both ask and obey God. So my application is be a courageous leader who intercedes for people, but also challenges them to obey God. So I was reading this and thinking about the different leadership hats that I wear. So I lead my family. I'm discipling my kids daily, and recently, just moved into a new role at the church, and so I'm thinking about leadership in a whole new light. And so I read this and I saw Joshua, Caleb, Moses leading in very intentional ways that started with faith, right? So Joshua and Caleb had faith. They're like, listen, if God said we're supposed to take this land, we better go take this land. And they respond and they challenge the people like, no, we're going to, even though 10 said no, they said, no, we've got the faith. We got to act in courage. And then Moses also had faith that God would hear his prayers, and he advocated for the people and he interceded. He prayed for them in his own way, and God heard him, and God responded to him, which makes me think I better be praying for the people that I'm leading. And I also better be challenging them to obey God too. So that's my application today.
So my message was that the reason people miss God's blessing is because they reject it. And I think about, this is a little bit more message than application, but it'll get there. I think about how in some ways this is the kind of mirror image of Adam and Eve in the garden, right? Like they take something they're not supposed to. It's like you had all this good stuff and you weren't content with it, so you reach for the one thing you shouldn't have. In this case, this is God saying, okay, finally, here it is. I'm telling you to just reach out and grab it. You know what I mean? And all you have, the alternatives you have is not a garden full of beautiful food. It's a desert, right? Like this is what you have. You can either be out here or you can take the amazing thing in front of you. And it's like, just do it. Like it's you know what I mean? And so the reflection is this, like there are two ways to sin. One is to chase after something you shouldn't want. Mm-hmm. But the other is to fail to step up to the good thing that God is calling you into. That there's actually a fear of that. Like there are lots of people who won't face their addictions, not because they're like, yeah, I love being an addict, but because they're afraid of what it looks like to step into a new reality. Mm-hmm. It's so hard when you say, look, this is what I've had, and I don't know if I can do the new thing. I don't know if freedom is something that I can handle. Mm-hmm. Or to say like, look, the process of actually like getting free from this or stepping into this new calling or whatever it is, like that's scary. It's hard. And so I better go back to Egypt. Let me go find something because this is too much. And so the application is this. It's to say, rather than rejecting what God is offering, the blessing that I'm like, I say I want, it's to do what Caleb and Joshua did and say, let me describe to you this land. It's like really, really good. And there's something about saying, you really do want that. And like to stoke the desire for the good thing God is giving. So you'll say, you know what? I'm going to just take it. I'm going to go for it. It's like a positive desire to stoke that thing of, I want what God has for me. And it's better than anything I could have. Whatever it takes, I want it. It's like the parables we read about in Matthew, like sell everything, buy the field, just get the treasure. It's worth it, But you gotta know the treasure is really good. So that's the application. Like fix your mind on the treasure that God's offering and say, whatever it takes, I'm going to get it.
Thanks for hanging out with us. Join us again next Monday for a new episode where we'll be looking at another passage from the Bible Savvy reading schedule. And in the meantime, if you're not following along with the reading plan, check out BibleSavvy.com. Also, you can subscribe and leave a review on whatever platform you're listening or watching on. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Email us your questions or suggestions at podcast@BibleSavvy.com. Lastly, tell your friends, and we'll talk to you next week.